India and Norway share close relationship. There have been high-level engagement between the two countries. With me is the Norwegian ambassador to Delhi, and this is his last interview before he leaves back home to Norway. And essentially, 4 years here in Delhi. My first question to you, sir, is that how do you characterize the relationship between India and Norway? And under your tenure, the 4-year tenure, how the relationship has progressed further?
Actually, we see an India who gains more and more importance in the world, both economically and politically, and I will say environmentally. And it's extremely important for us when it comes to climate change and environment that India succeeds, because if India doesn't succeed, the world will not succeed. And same comes to actually combating poverty. If India doesn't succeed, the world will remain poor. So that is are the global goals that we see. And I have to say, even during my tenure, we observed a tremendous change in spite of the pandemic. And also India is growing rapidly. It's a market where we need to be present. So that has also been a privilege to be here and observe this growth and the opportunity it gives. And therefore, we have been working quite diligently on the areas where Norway, which is a small country, and India, which is a huge country population-wise, see eye to eye. Where actually we have something to offer and where we actually have size, like in the oceans, like in energy, and like in environment. And the cooperation has really progressed swiftly. We have been able to really deepen the cooperation when it comes to oceans, where we have a task force on blue economy, who has been resulting in developing marine spatial plans, first in pilot areas, and will be pushed out, and also for other areas as marine pollution. We have established a similar task force on energy, where we see how actually our know-how and our expertise, also our capital, may then come in and help India in the green shift, developing renewable energy, getting energy need for its growth. And both areas we have succeeded tremendously. The trade has doubled in these 4 years, despite the pandemic.
So you talked about issues related to environment. What does sustainability means to you? What's the Norwegian model of sustainability, if you can talk about that?
Sustainability means that you are able to create goods and you're able to grow without actually ruining the environment. So actually it's some sort it's positive growth. And what we see is that economic growth may be extremely detrimental to the environment and then to our long-term perspectives if we're not able to achieve sustainability. So it means now it means when it comes to oceans that we're able to harvest the potential of oceans in a way that doesn't endanger it. Overfishing is an ever-present problem. It's that we are able to stop the pollution of the oceans, which threatens of killing of much of it, and if not, then cover it with plastic. It means that we keep the quality of the earth and that we are able to actually reduce the carbon emissions, everything for our long-term survival. Here, Norway and India are very different because we have a huge territory, we have a hugely developed economy and an affluent economy where we can afford a lot of measures that India cannot afford. India has a huge population, has huge unmet needs, but it's important to find ways that these needs can be met without being to detriment, because then we will be even worse off in the future. And that's an extremely interesting dialogue we have both on political level and but more on actually practical level when it comes to researchers, academics, and business.
Continuing with this topic, the issue of environment, climate change, India has the International Solar Alliance and your country has joined it. If you could talk about the convergences between the two countries when it comes to fighting the menace of climate change.
Here is the important part here is renewable energy. And we have been now working a lot to actually share our history and knowledge on hydrogen. Green hydrogen was the production methods for green hydrogen were developed in Norway 120 years ago. And we bring the history, knowledge, and value chain to India.
When it comes to women's role in the workforce, your country has taken a major lead on that. A model, perhaps the Norwegian model, that the world can adopt, that India can adopt, if you can talk about that.
First, I have to say that we had two parallel processes that happened at the same time. The entry of the women into the workforce, this started in the 1970s, and us starting to produce petroleum. People know that Norway has become a rich country because of our petroleum. But when you look at what the women's workforce has brought to the GDP and what the petroleum has brought to the GDP, the conclusion is actually the increased female participation in the workforce is the most important part. Which makes us, this is something we are proud of. It has come actually also through a political struggle back and forth, but basically giving equal rights and equal opportunities is as important for women. So in that perspective, we're really supporting of actually the India focus on empowering women in the workforce and empowering women economically.
Moving on to the larger regional connect, the Nordics and India, we know that two India-Nordic summits have happened, and if you go by reports, it's believed that the next Nordic summit could happen in your country, but not asking for confirmation. But on this platform, the India-Nordic platform, how do you see it going forward, especially in areas like clean technology, where the Nordics are clearly having a lead role?
I think it's a very useful platform. We are 5 small but technically advanced developed countries. Getting this summit every second year, and the plan is to have it in Norway in 2024, gives us a political focus for the work. And it's also, the Nordics is maybe the world's best integrated region. There are few other regions in the world where neighboring countries are so supportive of each other, and also are managing to work together, if not for something else, that we are brothers. And we always enjoy each other's company. But we also, in many ways, we're fulfilling different parts of the economic spectrum. So therefore, we can bring solutions together, which is more than every single country can do. So in that respect, it's a good format.
So India is the chair of the G20 summit. We will be hosting the summit in a matter of few weeks only now, and of course, there will be a lot of diplomatic activity here. How do you see India's chair of this mega grouping in terms of giving a shape to the global discourse where we are facing a lot of geopolitical tensions, whether it's in Europe when it comes to the Ukraine conflict, or whether it's here in the Indo-Pacific with a very aggressive China?
I have to congratulate India for their presidency of the G20. We see they put enormous effort in using this to show India to the world, and also bringing the world to India. If you go for G20 meetings, you will have a quite intensive or extensive picture of the whole of India, and thereby signaling the increased ambitions of India globally. Also, India has done this in a very difficult political period, and they've been able to balance that out. Coming out from the G20 presidency with very good marks, I would have to say.
Going to your part of the world, Europe has been facing the devastating impact of a conflict, the Ukraine conflict. What's the Norwegian role? What are the role, in a sense, what's your policy when it comes to the ongoing conflict? You share a border, even though it's a small border, with Russia as well. Do you fear a spillover effect of the conflict into your country?
We don't fear any spillover effect into our country, but the global security picture was changed completely by the unprovoked illegitimate attack of Russia on Ukraine. So this changed overnight the whole perception in the population. For instance, before the invasion, there was a debate about NATO. After invasion, there is no discussion about NATO. And we saw that in our neighboring countries, Sweden and Finland, having neutrality in their spine, and decided to act enter NATO. So this has really changed the political picture in Europe, and it will be of concern for a long time coming, and it's also have practical implications with the refugees coming in. We read a few weeks ago reports about fighting around Zaporizhzhia. If that nuclear plants, something happened there, the effects will be felt in southern Norway within hours. So there is a substantial concern, and we are here clearly with Ukraine.
In terms of NATO, you pointed out, you of course hosted the foreign ministers meeting as well, the informal one. The role your country is playing in shaping the discourse in the grouping. There are many countries, your neighbors, who are keen to become members, while there are other countries in the NATO, like Turkey, who are not very keen that there should be more members. So where do you see the discourse going when it comes to the membership of this grouping, with many countries eager to? And of course, there is obviously right now ambiguity over Ukraine, whether it could become a member given that it's involved in a conflict right now.
It's important to say that NATO expands by countries join NATO because they look at it as a way of actually improving the security. And it's a decision by every single country. Then NATO will then see if they can accept it. And there is now a discussion on Ukraine, but it's impossible to do that while country is in conflict, and the country needs to fulfill certain criteria before joining, and this criteria was lacking before the war, and that was in reality not an issue. But NATO is not a closed ship. NATO is open for partners who actually feel that as a way of securing their, improving their security. For us, it has been a clear cornerstone of our foreign security policy since the establishment of NATO, and that has been also an important guarantee for us being then able to actually have an independent foreign policy, and actually to be as active as we have been on very many areas. We are extremely active in the multilateral fora. We have been active in facilitating a peace process around the world, and we are always looking forward how we can improve on international cooperation.
So my question to you, of course, we've already talked about your memories, and you talked about the anecdotes as well. But before I leave you, an obvious question is the Norwegian investment funds. They have been biggest in the world. If you can talk about and their plans to invest here in India, given that India is now the 5th largest economy, and very soon, as the plans are, to make it the 3rd largest economy.
It's a question I receive often when traveling. Could you please make the sovereign wealth fund come and invest here in India? And then I have to reply, they are here already. It's one of the major foreign investors in India, at the tune of about $17.6 billion and counting. And but the point is that they don't invest in particular projects. They invest in stocks in listed companies, and they don't surpass 2% of the stocks. So they will buy into several small companies. So when it comes to sovereign wealth fund, they are here, but don't call them, they call you. But at the same time, Norway is concerned about investment in renewable energy. So we have set up as a particular climate investment fund managed by the fund called Norfund, which India has been one of the focus areas for this fund. And up to now, it has been invested short of 1 billion kroner, some 7 billion plus rupees in projects here in India, and more will be coming.
It's the last question. Closing your interview on a very softer note. Essentially, 4 years here in India, there must be memories associated. Anything you'd like to share with us? Any fond memories or any anecdotes or something you are leaving India with? Of course, perhaps heavy heart, but also a lot of memorabilia as well, gifts.
Well, it has been 4 fantastic years in spite of the pandemic. And it just rushes on the memories. But I will give you some. For instance, we went to Kashmir, and I had to tell the lieutenant governor, this is even more beautiful than my country. We went down to Mumbai, to the beaches, together with Afroz Shah to pick plastic, and then we were going to have some sort of, to make a video. And the moment they started the video, it started to pour down rain. So we really could show that we were actually suffering for the cause of picking plastic. We went to Ajanta and Ellora caves as tourists, and I have to say that was a revelation of beauty and art that was completely mesmerized with. So there are so many of these memories coming from so many places. It's been a fantastic stay, and I will be back.
So thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure speaking to you on a range of topics, whether it's your tenure here in Delhi, in India, or whether it is how the relationship has strengthened as you leave the country after 4 years. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to me on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.